bodies. Hey, bitch, we control your bodies. Guess what? Guys win again, okay? Men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. It's your body, my choice.
Is there an issue with men in this world? So this is Nick Fuentes coming at the internet with this just explicitly, disgustingly misogynistic rant in the aftermath of Trump's election victory. Just really gross stuff. We control your bodies, your body, my choice. Just being explicitly misogynistic and really doing his best to try to make it an unwelcoming place for women to live in this world, or at least in the country of the United States with Trump as president. And I think that this is an attitude that we're going to be seeing much more when we have someone who is explicitly anti-women in the White House. In Donald Trump, he very famously does not believe in consent for doing sexual acts with women. He demeans women. He has issues getting along with women unless they are absolutely supplicant to him and will bend over backwards to make him happy. That's the only kind of woman that he appreciates. With all of this hatred towards women that is literally in positions of power in America, I think that it is warranted to go through this video, which came out before the election. This is by ShoeOnHead, 1.8 million views, The Man Problem. Why are men moving right? And we can take a look at some of these comments, and the comments are fairly supportive of while maybe not the Republican agenda, they are supportive of the idea that Democrats have failed men. And with 1.8 million views a few days before the election, I do think that it is worth a watch. And I hope that you'll join me as we break down this video and answer the question, are men ruining America? Maybe that's not the question ShoeOnHead's asking, but we'll find out.
Hello everyone, and happy 1-year anniversary to my male loneliness epidemic video. I'm happy to announce that since that video uploaded, the discourse has greatly improved. People all around the world are taking men's issues more seriously, and the gender war has finally come to an end. Just kidding, everything has gotten worse and nobody has learned anything. From the witches on The View cackling about how men are useless.
Do we need men?
Men are useless.
To women online saying they'd rather be stranded in the woods with a bear than a man.
Would you rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear?
The bear. Bear. It seems that things have...
Okay, so, I mean, this is funny. ShoeOnHead's giving two examples of ways where, like, more ostensibly liberal society is criticizing men and making it a world where men feel bad to be masculine. And man, this whole vibe I'm getting from this video is ShoeOnHead is like, I'm one of the good women, guys. You can trust me. She's like, I'm gonna throw these other women under the bus. I'm gonna call the women on The View cackling witches, cackling about how useless men are. And it's obviously like dumb jokes they're saying. Women on The View interview men all the time. They live in a fucking patriarchy and they know that. So they do interview men. They do respect men's opinions. And that's not something that can be said for a lot of these right-wing podcasts like Patrick Bet-David, like Joe Rogan. A lot of these guys, while they might have women on, they definitely skew more towards having men on. And then the whole man versus bear thing it's so dumb. It's so, like, how does... Okay, I don't want to get into it, but if you are the type of guy that's looking at man versus bear and you feel bad because women are choosing the bear over a man, then I'm sorry, you are the fucking problem. Because if you, like, if you are comfortable with women and women are comfortable with you, and they would still say, I would rather be in the woods with a bear than a man, they're not talking about you. They're not talking about, like, specifically, they're not going to be comfortable with you in the forest. They're talking about, like, the idea of the average man. And if you see that and you feel threatened by that, and you feel like, oh my God, maybe they are talking about me, then yeah, they actually probably are talking about you, because you're giving off weird vibes. And I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but if you want to be confident, if you as a man want to be confident in the presence of women, and you want women to be confident and comfortable in your presence, then you should strive to be the type of guy where if you hear that, it shouldn't bother you. And the fact that ShoeOnHead is bringing, like, The View up, which, hello, I thought this video was about young people. Why are you talking about The View? And then also the man versus bear TikTok thing as examples of how it makes men feel bad to be a part of society. That's starting this video off on a really bad footing. Also, just one more thing. She's bringing up, like, a misogynistic, she's, like, bringing up a misogynistic jab at the women on The View, calling them cackling witches in the process of defending men's place in the world. So it's big pick-me energy coming from ShoeOnHead, which is ironic, because that's something that she says that's a stereotype of women that talk about these issues.
Have gotten more toxic than ever, and the gender divide couldn't be any wider, especially politically.
In 2008,
God.
58% of young people leaned Democratic. 2012, 53%. And in
Okay, so this is young people. So 58. Okay, let's
the
just
last two major election years, that percentage held steady at 55%. But in 2023, that number dipped below 50% for the first time since 2005. And you'll notice right here, they've started to lean more Republican. And that's partly because of one specific group: young men.
Okay, I know I said I was going to focus on the gender war.
Okay, so just one thing. If we're going to get into stats, then we might as well start this video off on a bit more of an informed footing. We can take a look at the actual stats coming out of this election. Obviously, this video that we're watching was filmed before the election, but, you know, we have the benefit of hindsight. So, according to this Guardian article, we can scroll down to point number 3. Trump did better with young women than he did in 2020. So it's not just that young men are getting more and more Trumpy. Young women are also leaning more Republican, at least in the 2024 election. We can read that men chose Trump 56%. However, compared to his last run, Trump did better with both young men, 41%, and young women. So for 2024, 56 voted for Trump compared to 41% in 2020, whereas 58% chose women, so 40% chose Trump, and that's up from 33%. So we can see an increase of 7% for women and an increase in 16% for men. So basically, young women increased at a 7% click for Donald Trump, and men increased at about double that at 15. So both men and women leaned more towards Trump compared to 2020. However, men did at twice the rate that women did, which is a pretty significant gender divide. However, to put that gender divide into a bit more context, we can see that men always vote more for Republicans. And we can get into that later on in this video. Maybe ShoeOnHead's going to be talking about this. But in 2016, men voted plus 11 points for Trump, whereas women voted plus 13 points. Biden, women voted plus 15, plus 8 for Harris, and we have Trump plus 8, plus 13. So what's the divide? It's 24 for Clinton in 2016, 23 for Biden, and 21 for Trump and Harris. So you can see that the gender divide is actually shrinking in this final election overall. The first data we looked at was for young men and young women. This is for just men versus women in general. And it wasn't necessarily that the men increased so much towards Trump, but it was that the women decreased in Harris. So in general, this election was a huge rebuke of the status quo. This was an anti-incumbent election in general, and the stats, even divided in gender lines, really reflect this. Anyway, this isn't a perfect statistical analysis of how the demographics broke down in the 2024 election, but I think that it does give us a pretty firm starting ground to watch this video from.
And not talk about politics for a while. However, I found a loophole. Politics is talking about gender war. With this election being hailed by the media as the man versus woman election, according to any and all data coming out recently, men all around the world have shifted more right, and women have shifted more left. But women going more left was not the focus.
So just, again, we went over this data. Men shifted more right. Women also shifted more right, but at a slower rate than men did. And if we go back to this CNN article, you can see, again, what was the stats for young people? Young men increased by 16% from 41 to 58, and women increased by 7%, 33 to 40. Wait. No, it was 41 to 56, so that's 15 for young men, and then it was 33 to 40 for women. So that's an increase of 15 to 7, and we can look here. This was an increase of 5 for men overall, and a decrease or an increase by 7. So actually, young women shifted at the same rate that women in general did, whereas young men increased at a 3-to-1 clip compared to men overall in the country. Young men did a 15-point increase, whereas men overall did a 5-point increase. So that's really interesting. And you can say actually that men have been increasing at a lower rate than women overall. But specifically young men have had this larger shift, this more significant shift. A 15-point shift in young men compared to a 5-point shift in men overall, and a 7-point shift in young women compared to a 7-point shift in women overall, which that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Of this month's outrage. The outrage, of course, was about men. That's right, we got our yearly, oh no, what is happening to men? Why are they moving to the right freak out? But unlike last year, this freak out isn't solely happening on the internet, no. It's also happening in Washington, D.C.
There are only 46 days until Election Day, and the Harris-Walz campaign is struggling to appeal to a group of voters that could determine the outcome of the election, and that is men.
The Harris campaign is making an aggressive last-minute effort to win over younger male voters.
Am I really gonna make a video criticizing the Democrat Party days before the election? Of course I am. Now before you...
I need to create a censor button to block out fucking Zoomer editing like this. It's ridiculous.
Celebrate or grab your pitchforks. This is not a pro-Trump video. This is a do better video. This is a mommy's not mad, she's disappointed video. Actually, I lied. Mommy's pretty mad. In this video, I am going to be addressing the Democrats' so-called man problem, the recent discourse about men moving right, the last-minute pandering the Democratic Party is doing to get them back, what they could be doing instead, and of course, going over some terrible opinions. Not my opinions.
Jesus Christ, save me from this editing. Is ShoeOnHead going to give us real policies to get men back onto their side? That's all I want to care about. That's all I care about in this video. That's all I want to know. Because, okay, last minute pandering, obviously that's not going to work. You know what could work though? Making yourself more accessible to young men. Going on the fucking Joe Rogan podcast where Donald Trump went on and he got 45 million views. That could really fucking work if you give young men like an alternative to Donald Trump. If all they're being fed is Donald Trump on all of these podcasts, Theo Vaughn, the Paul Brothers podcast, Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, Patrick Bet-David, young men watch that shit. That shit is fucking popular. If Kamala Harris goes on there, then maybe you won't get a fucking 15-point shift compared to a 5-point shift in men overall. It's crazy, dude. So again, I don't think there's any policies that Kamala Harris can do in the last final weeks before the election that would materially change people and get them to change their mind that way. But just making yourself accessible to these people is a huge asset that Kamala Harris just passed up on.
I've never had a bad opinion in my life. Except that one opinion. We don't talk about that one opinion. In a world where it seems like everything men do and like is toxic, from eating meat to working out to even having a beard.
What the fuck is she doing? This isn't substantial criticism to what the Democrats' policies are.
From eating meat to working out to even...
What is happening?
Seems like everything men do and like is toxic, from eating meat to...
Meat consumption feeds on toxic masculinity. Okay, well, this head... Okay, first of all, it's a headline. You could find any headline that you can find any headline in the fucking universe to include on this. You're not actually backing up the point. You're not... This headline isn't what she just said. She said eating meat is toxic. This headline is literally not saying that eating meat is toxic. It says that meat consumption feeds on toxic masculinity. Like, it's exacerbated by toxic masculinity, and it's a part of what toxic masculinity portrays manliness as being. Okay. It's not saying eating meat is toxic. That's not what it's saying at all.
To working out.
How gym bro culture is harming young men. The pressure to get jacked is sparking a male mental health crisis and driving men into the arms of the far right.
To even having a beard. Oh wait, that reminds me.
Okay, that isn't saying that working out is toxic. It's talking about a specific gym bro culture. And then she's saying having a beard. Okay, and then we're just going to get into an ad here. Holy shit, an ad for razors. Okay, I'm being extremely critical here, but if you're making points as a lead-in to an advertisement that you're doing, not to plug myself, but not going to ever take ads, okay? So if you want to support me, go ahead. Maybe I'll start a Patreon. Let me know if you would sign up for a Patreon in the comments down below, because I'm not going to ever take any fucking ads, because I don't want to do this shit. I don't want to be like Ben Shapiro, where in an 8-minute video, I have 4 minutes of it as ads. I don't want to be like fucking ShoeOnHead, where she will make points about how demeaning it is to be a man, and how the left and progressives and the liberals are shitting on men so much. You can't even shave. You can't even have a beard. Speaking of that, let me sell you a razor. Ridiculous. So stupid. Give up all kind of
We're
credibility.
not skipping the ad. You didn't skip the ad, right? And now, let's get...
I mean, I really don't think she really gives a fuck about this issue at all. In fact, I think she would really like it if there was more of a gender war, because that's kind of the content that is driving her channel. That's where she's making a ton of views off of her channel.
Back to the video. If you are a regular viewer to the ShoeOnHead channel, first of all, I'm sorry. But also, you know by now, I have been documenting the internet and society in general's growing and widely accepted hatred of men. This has been happening for a very long time. And if you dare spoke up about it, you were called an incel or a pick-me, depending on...
Okay, yeah, she's definitely been called a pick-me before. Also, I love, like, society's widely accepted war on men. Men make up half of society. How brutal can this war be? Is there so many self-hating men walking around?
Your gender. But seemingly, almost out of nowhere, there has been a change of heart.
You know, I think men are in crisis, actually, in this country. I think that plays out different ways, but I think we need to have a real conversation about that.
Wow, that's interesting. Mainstream media talking about this? I wonder why they care so much now. Democrats fear Harris losing too many male voters to Trump. Oh. Signs have been mounting that, for the first time in recent decades, Democrats may lose majority support from young men in 2024. The risk to Democrats is that this is not just a one-time fluke, but an indication of growing trouble with men in coming elections. Democrats can celebrate the support they are getting from young women, but they also need to take the disaffection of young men seriously, engage them directly, and respond to the visions of manhood and masculinity that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are
So they can celebrate the support they're getting from young women. Well, it turns out they're not really getting that support. But they also need to take the disaffection of young men seriously, engage them directly, and respond to the visions of manhood and masculinity that DJT and JD Vance are offering. So I don't know where she's getting this from. This is just literally a random article or a random paragraph. Like, she could have written it herself for all I know. I agree with this, and let's be honest, the Kamala Harris campaign didn't even really reach out to young women either. They lost ground in young women and young men. However, one thing that the Harris campaign has in their back pocket, well, okay, two things. The first thing, Kamala Harris is a woman, so that's always going to get more, that's always going to be kind of a built-in advantage. Even though it's not fair, it's identity politics, it's bullshit, that's still always going to be a factor to get people of the same demographic of you at least open to voting for you. And the second thing is abortion. Abortion is a huge issue. Kamala Harris had that in her back pocket. I think that was her strongest issue coming into this election. And abortion is an issue that personally affects a lot of young women. So, you know, that's kind of a built-in advantage that Kamala Harris has. And because of that abortion issue, I really do feel like she didn't need to campaign that hard towards young women. And as a result of that, by proxy, young men didn't really get campaigned that hard towards. What did Kamala Harris really do? She's like, let's make it an opportunity economy. Let's make it easier to buy a house. Let's make it easier to start a small business. That's not really hitting these young people demographics, right? The abortion issue is, I mean, maybe some climate change stuff is, but Kamala Harris didn't really go for that either. She's like, let's do a strong border, let's have a strong military, and let's make it easier for you to enter the middle class. I'm sorry, but people in high school and college aren't really concerned about trying to make it into the middle class. They're concerned about graduating school and finding a job that allows them to pay their rent. That's it. She didn't talk about healthcare. She didn't talk about free school. She didn't talk about any other kind of social programs that would help people out. And she didn't make herself accessible to these people in the same kind of avenues that Donald Trump did.
Offering. All right, Kamala, you got 2 weeks to reverse anti-male propaganda and resentment fueled by
Not her name. Her name's not Kamala.
our government, media, and institutions. How you gonna do it? Harris campaign creating space for white dudes. Oh, that's a great idea. I mean, a little too late, but I'm glad you're finally doing to be honest about role in history. Oh. It's always a space for white men to talk about how much they suck.
What made you start this group, White Dudes for Harris? And I suspect some of it has to do with the polling.
Yeah, for far too long, the left has essentially ceded white men to the MAGA right. There's large parts of the left who have gone out of their way to alienate white men over the last couple of years. And that's understandable in many ways. We decided that we wanted to create space for white men to be a part of electing Vice President Harris.
At the top of the call, White Dudes for Harris organizer Ross Morales Roquito said he wanted to address what he called the elephant in the room. Criticism.
Why would you pronounce this name Roquito? Okay, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I personally don't see how the left has been driving out men or white men or young white men. Everywhere I look online, it seems to me like young white men are a huge part of the progressive movement. You have Kyle Kalinske, he's not that young anymore, but he was once. Vosh, he's 30 years old. Sam Cedar, he's an old white guy, but he has young white people working for him. Hassan, he's white, I think. The Vanguard, they're white. Like, everywhere I look, it's white people that are being leftists. I'm sorry, I don't see left people saying white men can't be a part of this movement anymore. The movement is literally built by white people, and I mean, it's built by all different kinds of people, but white people are playing a major part in it. So I don't know. I don't see it. And again, this guy didn't say that we're going to be talking about how guilty white people are when we're doing this White Dudes for Harris campaign event.
Surrounding an event organized for white men, given the country's history of racism. A lot of people felt uncomfortable about the call, he said. Throughout American history, when white men organized, it was often with pointy hats on. They can't even have their gay little Zoom call where they circle jerk about hating themselves without their own movement going, yikes! A bunch of white males in one space? Seems kind of like the KKK. Black people can have their little groups and that's fine, but if a bunch of white people get together, well, that's just called bread tube. Never mind. White Dudes for Harris. I mean, she's doing pretty bad with Latinos, too. What's next?
That's a weird... I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too hard on her, but... Is White Dudes for Harris all about how white people need to self-flagellate and talk about how bad they are? Or was he just acknowledging that some people had concerns about a specifically white-designated group doing a Zoom call? Yeah, ShoeOnHead, get back to me when there's been a mass, like, systemic oppressive violence done against white people because of black people banding together and having, like, blacks only spaces. When blacks only spaces leads to lynchings, get back to me, ShoeOnHead, okay? Otherwise, you can just, like, leave that little comment on the editing room.
Hombres con Harris? Oh. So basically, men are leaving the Democratic Party in droves, and it's not looking too good for the Democrats.
Wait, so she's making this whole joke about how White Guys for Harris is a stupid group, and it's, like, driving away white men, and now she's just like, oh yeah, and there's also, like, a Hispanic group that's also for Harris. Okay, and I do think that this is specifically towards white people, because otherwise why would she bring this on? But we'll see,
So it wasn't long until everyone's favorite discourse hit Twitter again. If Kamala loses, which is very possible, there needs to be a real discussion about how Democrats speak to and reach young men. If Kamala loses. If she wins, there doesn't have to be discussion. We shouldn't change anything. Clearly, we're doing everything right. To be clear, I'm not saying we need to worry about women less or change any positions. I'm saying the polling around young men is concerning, and if it turns out to be true, we need to have a discussion about how condescending we are coming off to a huge part of the electorate. To be clear, I'm not saying we have to change anything, I'm just wondering why men aren't voting for us. What? I'm saying...
He's saying that if men don't vote for us, then we need to have a discussion on why men aren't voting for us. He's saying if the polling turns out to be true. He's not saying if young men aren't voting for us, and then we still win, and we do realize that they're not voting for us, we don't need to care about them. He's just saying, if men aren't voting for us, then we need to reassess the strategy that we use to reach them. And yeah, we did see a 3 times more pronounced shift in young men than in men altogether in this election.
The polling around young men is concerning, and if it turns out to be true, we need to have a discussion about how condescending we are coming off to a huge part of the electorate. To be clear, I'm not saying we have to change anything, I'm just wondering why men aren't voting for us. What? I am gonna regret posting
I mean, I feel like she just didn't understand what that tweet was saying.
this so hard. And oh boy did he, the replies were insane, to say the least. I must admit, I cringed reading most of this. I feel that one thing you didn't address is the systemic entitlement bestowed upon white men in the US. That sense of entitlement, that privilege they felt for eternity, is eroding. Systemic entitlement they have felt for eternity? They're like 22 years old! The f*** do you mean eternity? Who is this, like, 200-year-old man? So, young men are snowflakes with hurt fifis because they're not the center of attention anymore. Got it. So, are they poor little snowflakes, boo-hoo, or are they scary fascists that are gonna turn America into the Handmaid's Tale? Because they can't—
Bro, I thought this video was gonna be about, like, Democratic campaign strategy to try to reach young men, not about random people posting on Twitter. Yeah, you can make anything seem like an issue if you're just going to be replying to random people's Twitter posts. You could make it an issue that, oh, there's like a race war going on about, is apple pie better than pecan pie? What's the superior Thanksgiving dessert? Can you tell that I'm excited for Thanksgiving? Yeah, this is so stupid. I mean, what is she giving us so far? 2 sound bites from The View saying, "Oh, well, we don't need men. Men are useless." Obviously, that's a joke. If you would interrogate Whoopi Goldberg, would she say, "Oh yeah, fuck men, I'm a political lesbian. Why do we need men? Men shouldn't even be in part of society." No, it's ridiculous. It's why aren't you actually talking about the fucking campaign's view on men? And let's be honest, dude. In terms of, I know ShoeOnHead's like, "Oh, well, how are we going to pander to men in the last 2 weeks of the election?" And it's true. You can't really pander to men. I said before, you need to make yourself more accessible to men, kind of reach them where they can be reached, which is kind of this neoconservative media apparatus that has kind of infested all of YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, all of this shit. You need to make yourself more accessible to them. But to really reach them, you should have been tackling material conditions as soon as you got into office. As soon as Biden got into office, he kind of ran as the status quo, but a little bit good, and that just didn't turn out to be enough. That's just simply not enough. So you got to meet them where they're at. You have to address their material conditions. And Donald Trump, he met them where they're at. He made himself accessible to young men. But, I mean, if we're having an honest conversation here, he's done nothing to meet people's material conditions, and he's not promising anything meaningful. He's lying and saying that if we drill more for oil, then all of your problems will be solved. If we kick out immigrants, all of your problems will be solved. If we do a trade war with China, all of your problems will be solved. Those are lies. He's not actually going to change anything. But, I mean, as running as the non-incumbent candidate, then you kind of can make lies. You can make grand statements about what will be different when you get into office. And people are going to find out real quick that his policies aren't going to change their conditions at all. They're going to be in the same boat, if not really worse. So, yeah, I'd like to see ShoeOnHead talking about how, well, if young men are shifting right, it's not because the Democrats aren't meeting their needs, because the Republicans aren't meeting their needs either. Or we'll see what she talks about.
Be both. You either care about the future or you don't. You cannot simultaneously hand wave away men moving to fascism, but also fearmonger about it.
Bro, what the fuck is what's this shit? What's this shit? Fascism? Yeah, oh yeah, Trump's not fascist. This was what, 3 days before the election, and you're still saying Trump isn't a fascist? Again, man, like, I can't really take this too seriously.
Hi, man here. Maybe men just need to stop being absolute pieces of dog shit. It seems like the easiest thing to do, right? I don't feel alienated or uncomfortable with democratic messaging because I'm not a complete wannabe fascist cheese dick incel loser who thinks he's the good guy. Reddit and its consequences have been a disaster for the male race. They just need to get off their asses, stop playing video games, and get real jobs. First of all, what real jobs? These guys are coming out of college with useless diplomas and there are no jobs. Also, what an out-of-touch boomer-ass take. Get off your ass and stop playing those video games from the generation who watches TV 24/7. I don't want to hear it. Tell them to get therapy. Tell them whatever you told or gave to women in the 1950s. They made this bed, let them sleep alone in it. Or be f***ing better men. Any other group of people and it's, oh, boo-hoo, poor baby, let me rewire all of society so your feelings aren't hurt. And then with men it's, get therapy. Be f***ing better. While there is truth
that's just not accurate at all, right? We've seen so many media members come out after this election and be like, why are Latinos voting for Trump? Don't they know that it's against their self-interest? The Latinos are so stupid. Why are black men voting for Trump? Don't we know? Like, don't black men know that Trump's racist? Black men are so stupid. Why are women voting for Trump? Don't they know Trump's trying to take away women's abortion rights? Women are so stupid. Yeah, I mean, this is just what we're seeing all the time. Why is the Democratic Party so pro-trans? Don't they know that middle America hates trans people? Trans people are so stupid for being part of the Democrats. I mean, ShoeOnHead's just lying, right? She's obviously nitpicking tweets or Reddit posts or whatever the fuck she's doing to make this argument that the Democratic Party hates men so much, and they're ironically employing toxic masculinity to attack toxic masculinity and attack the people that are voting Republican.
Messaging needs to be better from Democrats as a whole. I reject that telling young men they need to be better is the problem. They are trash in their nature, and if they can't do the work to not be toxic waste of seed, that's on them. Vote for my team, by the way. We may not want to hear it, but this is what the data reflects. There is a massive loneliness epidemic in this country, which is disproportionately affecting men. Instead of calling them incels or mocking them, we should be willing to hear out their concerns. Wow, a surprisingly good tweet in a sea of bullshit. That's nice to see. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming you're a straight white man, so yeah, go do something about it. Why are you guys bothering the rest of us with this? I can't figure it out. Because I would like for Democrats to win the election. Why do you care about men suffering? Because I want to win the election. Amazing. This is the issue right here.
Bro, once again, why are you covering a Twitter argument? We had some pretty public candidates during this election cycle. Again, you posted this video a few days before the election, so you had plenty of footage to come through. You could, maybe I'm going to be eating these words and she's going to be quoting Kamala Harris saying that men need to do better and men need to just go to therapy so they can vote for me. But this guy's not, maybe he's a Democratic strategist. I don't fucking know. But once again, like, hearing men's concerns, it's sure men might have disproportionate loneliness. I think that men are generally have less friends than women in their same age range. They are young men are less likely to be in a relationship than women in their own age range. Young men feel a burden to provide for their family members and provide for a potential, like, a girlfriend or wife. They feel that burden, so that can isolate men. And yeah, they are raised to be less social than women. So there is pretty good evidence to suggest that young men are more isolated than young women, and that isolation can drive them towards conservatism. So again, what should the Democrats do? It's not just, oh, let's listen to the problems that men have. That's obviously not enough. You're not doing anything if all you're doing is listening. You need to address the problems, but again, the issue is, as Bernie Sanders put it, Democrats are unwilling to really attack the root of the problem, which is capitalism. It is capital being accumulated in the hands of the wealthy, and that's causing a cascading effect where people at the bottom have less and less, and they're just having a worse quality of life, and those issues are affecting men and women equally. So you can kind of kill two birds, one stone if you attack that problem, which is like the capitalism. And I do think that the male loneliness, the male like incel type culture will kind of dissipate, and it'll be like a drain is unplugged at the bottom of the pool, and slowly all of that toxicity will start pooling away if we can solve kind of this root issue. So again, are these important issues? I think that they are important issues. Do you need to go out of your way to pander towards men? I'm not so sure. I think that you can have strategy targeting young men to try to get them to vote for you, targeting men in general to try to get them to vote for you. You can talk about the isolation. You can talk about how hard it is to kind of get a footing in this world, move out, find a place, find a good paying job that offers upward mobility, have time and disposable income to hang out with your friends, find someone that you're potentially interested in dating and getting married and starting a family with. All of that is extremely difficult in terms of socializing with them, and it's difficult in terms of just the monetary pressure that puts on a person. So offering lip service to that is good, and I think this is something that we're going to get into, which is you do need to build a narrative for your voters, and the Republicans did a great job of doing that. They're saying that you are having real material issues. What is the solution to these issues? Well, the solution is we got to kill all trans people. We got to deport all of the immigrants. And we need to, close down the borders, drill for oil, and all of your problems are going to be solved. And I think Vosh has a great point here when he was reacting to. He wasn't actually reacting
What's
to
the
this
narrative
video.
for men? The narrative for men, there are two of them. One of them is don't be toxic, not a compelling narrative. And the other narrative, reclaim your glorious birthright, win everything to which you are entitled. That's a stronger narrative. That's a stronger narrative. I have long believed that men need leftist role models. And there are men who are leftist who are role models to many, like Hassan, for example. And Hassan has many young men who watch him. I have many young men who watch me. Doesn't change the fact that on average, young men are all like Adolf Hitler now. And a lot of these young men are being pulled to the right with promises that for which there is no match.
Yeah, so men are identifying more in the conservative movement, and we'll get into that later. I mean, this is a huge issue. But I think what Vosh was talking about in terms of the narrative is really important. The Republicans are offering a narrative not only to young men, but to people that are struggling economically in general. And not only did the Democrats offer the narrative of like, stop being toxic, I don't even think that's accurate. I think that the Democrats in particular, like the people that were on the campaign team, didn't offer any narrative towards young men. And maybe the narrative they offer towards young women is that, oh, you should vote for me because abortion's going to get banned. And that's just not going to be enough.
I don't know if people were as shocked this time as they were, frankly, in 2016. In many respects, this time around could be a lot more problematic. And last time was
so I just
the American dream in Las Vegas.
Shout out Majority Report.
They came to the U.S. from Mexico and Guatemala in the 80s. With his job in a supermarket and her job in a casino, they bought a house and raised 3 children. Now they wonder if their kids and grandkids will inherit that dream. Is it still possible to do that for the younger generation?
That's my main concern right now. What's going to happen to our new generation? Nowadays, they're not even able to move out of their houses anymore because everything is so expensive.
Life wasn't expensive as it is right now.
First PlayStation. We first met Mario back in February when he was seriously considering a vote for Donald Trump. He was undecided with previous votes for George W. Bush, Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden. At the last minute, he broke for Kamala Harris. But today, he's not upset about the results.
I'm kind of like more happy than upset. Why? Because Donald Trump is going to help the country with the economy.
The whole household is happy. Mireya and their 29-year-old son, Mario Jr., did vote for Trump.
Initially, I will say I did not agree with him. And then I started seeing that he was not afraid to speak his mind. And I noticed that he was not scared to say what he felt, regardless of what people would say. And I think I respect that about him.
So you liked his kind of brashness, his personality?
Yeah, I would say yes.
They're not alone. Across the country.
Okay, so 2 takeaways that I wanted to get from this and why I brought it up. The first takeaway is that there is an extreme economic pressure on people. They said here their 29-year-old son is unable to afford to move out of their house. So the pathways to establishing a family and establishing yourself as kind of a contributor to the economy and a member of the middle class is just simply not there anymore. And the other issue, or the other thing that I wanted to talk about is that their son, I think his name is like Mario Jr., said that, oh, well, I saw his brashness. And that is kind of a huge indicator that he saw him on one of these podcasts, right, where it's free flowing. It seems way more authentic than if Trump is doing an interview or if he's doing a debate. So again, it's the economic pressure and it's the accessibility as well as the narrative, right? Trump identified the problem. You are unable to move out. You are unable to start a family. You are unable to start your life pretty much. And I'm also going to give you the solution. And that's something that people can get behind. something that Kamala Harris really did not do. Her solution is, what, like $25,000 off when you buy your first house? That's not going to help people, right? That's not going to help this guy who can't afford to even get an apartment.
Start seeing men as people and not numbers in polls. That is step one. You can't even do step one. Anyway, there were thousands of these kind of tweets in response to this guy. You get it. We've seen it all before. If I went through all of them, this video would be 3 hours long. White dudes for Harris wasn't the only strange attempt the Democrats threw out at the last second to get the male vote.
Hey, white dudes. So, I think we're all pretty sick of hearing how much we suck. Every time you go online, it's the same story. We're the problem. And yeah, some white dudes are. Trump and all his MAGA buddies are out there making it worse.
Are you f***ing kidding me? Years of these people saying men suck and are the problem, and now they're like, hey fellow men, are you sick of being told you suck and are the problem? The audacity. Apparently, Kamala Harris has a secret weapon to win.
Okay, yeah, that is a pretty bad ad. And that's actually a good example to bring up of something that's related to the actual campaign and not just random Twitter people.
Over male voters.
Kamala Harris is turning to her running mate, Tim Walz, hoping he is the secret weapon who can chip away at Donald Trump's support from men.
Much like how Trump chose Pence to win over the more establishment Republican voters, Kamala seems to have chosen Tim Walz to try and win over the white male vote. And boy, are they trying. Now, I don't hate Tim Walz. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised when they chose him over Josh Shapiro. I like a lot of his policies, like his universal school lunch policy. That's an amazing policy. You'd have to be an insane freak to disagree with that, or a libertarian. But I repeat myself. And there were a few times where he was speaking where I completely forgot he was running to be Kamala's VP and not president himself. And he actually brought a lot of energy to the Democratic stage for once. So what the f*** was this? Putting out a bunch of ads of Tim Walz changing the air filter in a car, clumsily shooting a gun, and drawing a political football play-by-play. Trotting out Walz like some kind of minstrel show of a white man. Like a man dressing up like a man for Halloween. You don't gotta do all this, bro, I promise you. And they don't shy away about how that's exactly what they are trying to do. Tim Walz is clearly a Midwest man's man, but he's the antidote to toxic MAGA masculinity. Despite his typically masculine resume as a Midwestern football coach and veteran, Walz is utilizing those qualities to push forward a more progressive, compassion-based form of masculinity. Part of being a vice president is understanding that you are just that, someone who is there to aid and support the president. Walz simply being there on the ticket with a woman and taking a back seat to his running mate, Vice President Kamala Harris, is him embracing his leadership role in a positive, masculine way. Football coach and cheerleader, how Tim Walz is defining masculinity. Amy Deal, a sexism researcher and author of the 2023 book Glass Walls, told USA Today that men like Walz who are intentional about rejecting traits and beliefs commonly dubbed as toxic masculinity are the tonic to harmful stigma associated with expectations of men and boys. He shows you can be masculine but also not threatened by women as equals or women who are in positions of power. In fact, you can be cheerleaders for them. Notice the common theme here: taking a back seat, cheerleading. Like 5 different articles I read specifically use this word cheerleading. Even a few about Kamala Harris's husband, Doug. God knows we need an antidote for all the lousy men in the news, and I think I found one. A lovable goofball who is happy to cheerlead for his wife, the vice president of the U.
I mean, one thing about this that's kind of funny is ShoeOnHead's like, oh, look, they're making Tim Walz do a minstrel show of being manly, which that's a weird way to put it. Those are actually Tim Walz's hobbies. He does that. That's not him awkwardly shooting a gun. That's him using proper gun reloading technique. You're not a fucking gun owner if you think that's him awkwardly shooting it. And also, he's put out content like that before he ever got linked up with Kamala Harris. That's just the way that he markets himself in Minnesota when he's in his governor races, and as governor, he puts out clips of him, just doing stuff with his family, going to the Minnesota State Fair, fixing a car, talking about different events that are happening in Minnesota. So a little bit unresearched there, but so it seems like ShoeOnHead's trying to make the point that this campaign is almost feminizing men by saying that it's masculine to support women. So I'm curious to see where she's going with this. But honestly, so far, nothing that she's brought up has been like really bad. At most, you can say that form of masculinity that the Democrats and all of these people typing up these articles about it hasn't really been hitting. It hasn't been translating to getting more men to vote for them. Obviously, we saw that more men didn't vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. But, I mean, again, it's nothing. It's not saying we have no definitive proof that these attempts to market Tim Walz as masculine have backfired at all. We have no evidence of that whatsoever.
US. Thank God for Doug Emhoff. Successful guys can support their wives and be respected. You don't have to be the quarterback to play the game at an elite level. Emhoff and his breed of dudes who are giving it their best shot may never be as come hither to lost young men as the militant Andrew Tate models of manhood, but they are out there, and, not unlike good husbands, will appear when they are needed. From the outside looking in, the right promises young men a return to the good times, of the glorious past. You know, the one your grandfather had. The Coca-Cola ad rose-tinted version of the past. Back when you can afford a house and support a family on one income. While the left, which historically, in my opinion, had the policies to make that happen, are instead trying to sell men a vision of the future. And well, the future is female. A future where you're no longer playing the game, men. You're on the sidelines being a cheerleader. Doesn't that just sound so exciting? Like, what the hell is going on inside these DNC consultant?
I mean, again, I don't think that's what they're trying to tell young men. That's the opinion of some writers, and it's not even the writers saying, oh yeah, this is a form of masculinity that will become the norm. It's just saying that this is another way that people can portray masculinity, and that masculinity is a supportive type of masculinity. And then specifically, again, they're talking about Doug Emhoff, who, I mean, he's a goofball. I guess they're just saying that it shows that men can be vulnerable towards their wives or the women in their lives. I don't know, weird. And then if you're talking about Tim Walz and his masculinity, he is a very like family-oriented guy, and I do think that he kind of brought that type of vibe into the campaign, where he was extremely supportive of Kamala Harris and extremely excited to like be of use to her. Go out and do whatever needed to be done, and that is a very old archetype of the man. You can think back to like Little House on the Prairie, how Pa and Ma, they had like a pretty equal relationship, and Pa would like kind of revel in being of use to his family. That's the type of vibe that Tim Walz was bringing to this campaign. But I 100% agree with what ShoeOnHead's saying here, where the Republicans did bring this idea where we're going to get back to the time when men were the patriarchs of their household, where every man's house was a kingdom and everyone there was his subjects. His wife listened to him, his children were obedient, and so was his wife. You would be able to afford a house and have a family by the age of 30. So I agree with what ShoeOnHead's talking about there. I just don't think that she's correct in that that's the narrative that Democrats are sending to men. Again, I said before, I don't think the Democrats really had any narrative to sell to men.
Meetings. I really gotta know. Does anyone have any ideas on how to appeal to young men? And please, for the love of God, do not say we have to offer them anything or change in any way. I got it. What? Camo hats. We did that. Vasectomy bus. We did that. Have you perhaps tried nagging them? Yes, we've been doing that. Say, you know that whole male loneliness epidemic thing?
So just one more thing here. I do think there's a difference between trying to appeal to young men and creating a narrative. A narrative is a very specific type of appeal that you can make to a voter. It's something that gets them ideologically aligned with you, and it gets them invested in it. It's not just saying that, oh, look at that, they're driving around in fire trucks. I remember playing with fire trucks when I was a young boy. That's appealing to me. It's this whole ideology. It's this story that they can get behind, they can get involved in, and they can identify with it. They can see themselves down the line. If they hook up with this ticket, if they vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they can see themselves maybe in like 5 years having a family, having an apartment, having a house. I don't know. But that's not anything that Kamala Harris did. If we're going to be talking about how camo hats are appealing to young men, or men in general, it's not really appealing to people. It's like giving them something that maybe they could have some kind of interest in. And then more specifically, the camo hats, that's not really for men. It's for hunters and like that type of culture. Again, not only men like doing that culture. I don't know. It's dumb.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Oh, yeah.
A really nice place. Have you been here before?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite spots. I bring everybody here. I said I go on a lot of dates, but...
Hey men, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, women won't you. Brilliant. Young men...
I mean, that was just a pro-voting ad. And it is kind of true. Like, women don't really like guys that are misogynistic. I'm sorry. Women like to be treated like real people. I know, guys, women are such sluts, right? All you need to do is treat them like a real person and have a genuine interest and connection with them, and they'll date you. It's ridiculous. It's the cheat code. I should be a pickup artist.
Men should know that if you vote for Trump, you're basically never going to get laid. I mean, is it incorrect? Don't think so. Trump gives girls the ick. Vote Harris, get laid. They are not beating the pretending to be progressive to get laid allegations with this one. Literally just endorsing woke fishing. When men pretend to be more progressive on dating apps to get laid. Do not do this, by the way. Be open and honest about your opinions. No, you cannot fix them. Also, pretty weird and like...
Wait, what? Wait, she's saying that the non-woke men should try to, or she's saying the non-woke men would try to fix the woke women? That's an interesting way of putting it. That's an interesting perspective on this. Yeah, 100%. If you are a conservative guy, be upfront about your conservative opinions to any type of women that you're talking with, because you don't want a woman to be in a relationship with you, get married with you, and then find out that, I don't know, you believe in marital rape. That's not a great situation to find yourself in. So yeah, for sure, be upfront with people. I appreciate that if you're upfront.
Low-key sexist to imply like women are some prize for voting the correct way. Hey, and if all else fails, go after the Gooner vote.
Oh, God.
Oh! Sorry, you can't do that.
What the hell, man? How'd you get in here?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning porn nationwide.
Bro, that was a great ad.
I'm sorry. I love this ad. The one time they speak to men directly, and it's, hey men, the Republicans are gonna take away one of the only vices you use to numb the pain. So vote for us. Bleak. Just the absolute state of the world right now.
It's
also,
kind of a weird description of porn. Like, I wonder what kind of guys she's really appealing to with her audience. If the description of pornography that you're using is a vice that someone uses to numb the pain, I mean, you're basically talking to porn addicts right now, right? Like people that actually can't get women. So, I mean, you're criticizing Democrats from saying that Trump voters can't get women, and then your audience, you're kind of acting like your audience is guys, like conservative guys that can't get women. Oh yeah, you shouldn't try to change the woke women. I know that porn is the only vice that you use to numb the pain. Let's watch some of these videos.
Something strange is going on with boys. In many countries around the world, young men are more likely to be less educated than women, to die from overdose, drinking, or suicide. And and even to vote differently.
I like this
A recent
accent.
Financial Times report found that while young women are on average more progressive than their parents, as you'd expect from young generations, boys are becoming more conservative. Now, it's very difficult to define what it means to be conservative in one country, let alone around the world, but some experts think that one issue in particular could be driving this divide: gender equality. So why is this happening?
Women are hardwired.
Bro, this guy's voice
to get
is so
their
good.
Needs met through a man.
Women in America and London, how combative they are and how hard it is for them to submit.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes.
Many agree that misogynist influencers like these are radicalizing young men.
Andrew Tate is definitely in the conversation for the most dangerous person alive.
But I spoke to some experts who think there's a lot more going on.
Men who are struggling, who can't get status, who then feel insulted when this lower status group, women, is being assertive.
And while they don't always agree, what they have to say might surprise you.
Men aren't wrong to feel like their issues aren't getting much attention. No, they're not getting much attention.
Anyway, this looks like a pretty interesting video. I would recommend watching it, but I think that what they're talking about here is what we've been talking about, where men and women are experiencing this almost disenfranchisement, right? They are getting less economic opportunity. There's a diminishing pathway forward for them to advance into the middle class and further. It's becoming increasingly hard to not only socialize with people, like get friends, spend time with friends, but also become a member of society in general. Move out, get a good paying job, buy a house, start a family. That's an extremely hard thing to do in the younger generation. And men are feeling this. I think that it is true. I mean, I should be looking up data for this, but I think that it is true that men specifically, this issue is disproportionately affecting younger men. And why is that? Well, I think it's because it has a lot to do with the way that men were socialized in terms of being less sociable, having smaller social networks, being expected, having the expectations put upon you that you need to be the provider, you need to, it's still a pretty widespread expectation that men are the breadwinners of the family. They need to be making more than their wife. It's still kind of idealized to have a stay-at-home wife, right? That's still kind of the ideal picture that is presented for people. The man goes out, earns money. If you're extremely wealthy, you earn money, you have a house, your wife stays home, takes care of the kids, you come home, you have a happy family. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why this is disproportionately affecting men. But of course, it's affecting women. And again, as I said earlier, the Democrats can kill two birds with one stone by just fixing people's material conditions. And that's way easier said than done. But still, we haven't even had it's been said in this last campaign. I think this is interesting. So Jordan Peterson, he really popped off during like Trump's administration and to a point Biden's administration, but he had some diminishing during Biden's administration just because like his brain is melting through his ears. But he's had some interesting videos. So there's a few I want to check out. So this one, 11 million views. Jordan Peterson on the meaning of life for men. So we've kind of, ShoeOnHead's video has been a lot about how the Democrats are treating men. Let's take a look at how the Republicans are treating young men. So this is Jordan Peterson on the meaning of life.
Well, I'll
for
tell
men.
you a couple of strange things, things that I don't really understand. The first is, when we've done the analysis of the effects of the future authoring program, it has had a differential impact on men. And it's had a particularly differential impact on what I would call excluded men. And so that would be non-Western ethnic minority men, or what, majority men who aren't doing very well. So for example, at Mohawk College, the future authoring program had a particularly robust effect on Mohawk College students who were men who hadn't done very well in high school and who hadn't picked a major that had a destination, a career destination at its end. So you can imagine those people they have an ambiguous relationship with the idea of education.
What the fuck is he talking about? Haven't picked a major with a career destination at its end? What major can you not get a career in? Like basket weaving? You can still get a fucking career in that. Whatever.
And they're not oriented specifically towards a goal. They're not very motivated. Now, why did it have a differential effect on men? That's a good question. Well, first of all, the women are doing better. So it might just be a matter of the fact that it does better for people who aren't doing as well, and at the moment most of them are men. I think that might be part of it. But I don't believe that's all of it. I think that part of the reason that women are doing better is because they're agreeable. And so if a system sets out a structure and says, here's a pathway to attainment, the women won't rebel against that, they'll go along with it. And that's working very well for them at the moment. The men, especially the men on the disagreeable end of the distribution, and there's way more men on the disagreeable end of the distribution than there are women, right? That's what you get from, if you look at overlapping normal distributions. So there's the female distribution for agreeableness, male distribution for agreeableness. Tremendous overlap. Okay, women are higher. All the really agreeable people are women. All the really disagreeable.
Bro, the Jordan Peterson is like someone who is doing an impression of a college professor. It's like, we'll do the normal distribution for men's agreeableness on this axis, and then the normal distribution for women's disagreeableness here. I'm gonna fill this in. See? Overlap. We have overlap. You don't understand. Women are more agreeable than men are. Dude, this is so fucking stupid. Women are not more agreeable than men. This is ridiculous. Literally, the reason why men are fucking going towards Donald Trump is because they're agreeable to what he's saying. If Donald Trump was being like, yeah, women are dumb bitches, I know. We can't, I don't like women that backtalk. They're not good. If men were disagreeable, they're like, actually, I do like strong-willed women. Why would I vote for Donald Trump? He doesn't like strong-willed women. This is so dumb. Obviously, men are agreeable to things that they want to hear. If you're giving them a narrative, an idea, a story that says, oh, just do this and you will be back to being on top of society. You'll have women below you. You'll have your children below you. You'll have minorities below you. All you need to do is vote for me, Donald Trump, and you'll be back on top. You'll be this guy in a suit getting served milk as breakfast before he goes off to work at the fucking factory. And then you can earn enough money to raise 4 kids and have your wife be a stay-at-home wife. So dumb, dude. This whole bullshit is so fucking stupid.
People are men. And maybe the real differences occur at the extremes, right?
I'm going to draw boxes.
And it's a very interesting side effect of...
Maybe the real differences are at the extremes where they're definitionally the most different. I need to write this out on the blackboard so I can understand. This is such a big idea. The agreeableness.
Overlapping distributions. So people can be mostly the same, but that can still produce radical differences.
Wow. Wow. People can be mostly the same, but there can still be radical differences? My mind is blown. Bro, it's been so long since I covered Jordan Peterson, and he's such a dumb motherfucker. Holy shit.
Disagreeable men won't do anything they don't want to do. They just say, up yours. I'll go home and play video games. I'm not listening to your stupid classes. And why should I work for you? I'll just go have fun.
What?
I'll do my own thing. I don't think they're motivated.
Well, if you sign up for college, that's isn't the assumption that you want to do the coursework if you signed up for college?
Motivated. And so then if you take the men who are like that and you say, okay, what do you want? You can have what you want, but you have to figure out what it is. So then they write down what they want and they think, oh, hey, well, that might be worth having, so maybe I'll put some effort into it. That's what it looks like to me. Now, that's weak evidence. And this is a weak argument.
Not evidence at all.
But I'm trying to stretch out my understanding to a...
Pretty much the only thing Jordan Peterson has said so far is that give people goals, like set goals, which is a pretty good way to actually achieve stuff. If you write down goals, then that gives you a target, and you can write down sub goals, so it makes that target more and more achievable. That's pretty basic like life advice, right?
Count for this, but I'll tell you something else that's really weird. I don't understand this either. So more than 90% of the people who watch my videos on YouTube.
This is pretty weak evidence. This is weak evidence, and it's a weak argument, but I've spent the last 2 minutes and 50 seconds talking about it. So, I mean, you signed up for my class, so you must enjoy it.
Are men. Now that's weird because about 80% of psychology students are women. So that is not what you would expect, right? You would expect that the majority of them would be women. And you might say, well, it's because of the political stance I've taken. And I thought, well, that's possible. So I went and looked at the demographic data because I have that. Well, before I did any of the political videos, 85% of my viewers were men. So it's actually increased a bit. It's increased by 6%. And that's not trivial, but it was still overwhelmingly men. So that was interesting. I thought, what the hell? Why is that exactly? And then now I've been watching crowds when I've been talking to them. And the crowds that have come to see me in person. This happened at the University of Toronto free speech debate. And I actually noticed it and commented on it before the debate took place because I was talking about intrinsic differences between men and women. And I looked around the room and I thought, hey, 80% of the people in this room are men. So I had all the women stand up and then all the men stand up. I said, look, like, here's a natural experiment. For some reason, 80% of the people who showed up to this are men. Now, everybody thought I was kind of cracked to do that. And it was a risk, you know, but I thought, no, there's something going on here. And then what's interesting now is that every public appearance that I've made that's related to the sort of topics that we're discussing is overwhelmingly men. It's like 85 to 90%. And so I thought, wow, that's weird. Like, what the hell's going on here exactly? And then the other thing I've noticed is that I've been talking a lot to the crowds that I've been talking to, not about rights, but about responsibility, right? Because you can't have the bloody what are you doing? You can't have the conversation about rights without the conversation about responsibility, because your rights are my responsibility. That's what they are, technically. So no, you just can't have only half of that discussion. And we're
not what they are. I mean, my rights would exist irrespective of Jordan Peterson and irrespective of what Jordan Peterson does. I mean, you could violate my rights and commit a crime, but just because you do not respect my rights or have the responsibility of upholding my rights doesn't mean my rights don't exist. They're not contingent upon that.
We're only having half that discussion. And the question is, well, what the hell are you leaving out if you only have that half of the discussion? And the answer is, well, you're leaving out responsibility. And then the question is, well, what are you leaving out if you're leaving out responsibility? And the answer might be, well, maybe you're leaving out the meaning of life. That's what it looks like to me. It's like, here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You know, you're completely out. You have no idea what it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. Make it heavy enough so that you can think, yeah, well, useless as I am, at least I could move that from there to there. Well, what's really cool about that is that when I talk to these...
All right, I can't bear doing the Simpsons section, so I'm gonna go to what's your highest value section.
Yeah, well, you know, partly what you're trying to do in the future authoring process is say, okay, well, what's your highest value? Right? It's the star. It's like, okay, what are you aiming for? You can decide, man. But, you know, there's some criteria. It should be good for you. It should be good for you in a way that facilitates your moving forward. Maybe it should be good for you in a way that's also good for the family and the community. It should cover the domain of life.
Okay, Jesus fucking Christ, I can't deal with this shit. So stupid. Let's see. Okay, this is a shorter clip. Jordan Peterson gets emotional talking about Olivia Wilde's incel comparison. Oh, yes.
I've got to wrap it up. I don't want to, but I have to. I want to ask you just quickly, the film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men.
That's such a good description of Jordan Peterson. Oh, my God. He has nothing either. Man, what are these hair plugs, Jordan Peterson? You got this like hairline done in a lab. Holy shit! Just aged gracefully.
Are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Why not?
Sure. Why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time.
The incels need an intellectual hero, and in lieu of that, I will provide my pseudo-intellectual services because there are so many dragons of chaos everywhere. The incels, they need someone to unite them and get their incel power together. We will take back the right to have women as property. There have been way too many sexual crimes done against women because they are not viewed as property. Men don't respect women, and thus, when women are not used as property for men, of course we don't get their sexual crimes taken care of. Why would any man care about it? They're not my property. Haven't you heard of the tragedy of the commons, Piers? The tragedy of the commons!
Because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is.
Bro, he just stops there.
I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about it.
Well, God, you know. It's very difficult to understand.
Piers, do you have any idea how many men say that they lie awake at night sobbing covered in ejaculate from the pornography they're watching? Piers, my people, they need pussy, Piers. They need pussy. They're so isolated and alone. They don't even take showers, Piers. It's not tears from emotions, it's tears from the fumes that are coming off of my people at the conventions I go to, Piers. I can't stand it anymore.
How demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it? I saw the reaction.
By that time, you know, that as far as critiques go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, you know, magical super Nazi, that was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that. So when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for her movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so, I mean, the point is that Jordan Peterson is actually, you know, he's claimed young men as his flock, and he's the shepherd, leading them towards women and respect. That's kind of the whole vibe that Jordan Peterson's giving. And it's comical because Jordan Peterson is a quack, basically. He starts crying at the drop of a hat whenever incels are mentioned. But it is true that you do kind of need someone to specifically talk to men. And again, I'm not going to get away from the point that I think you can kind of get men and women by just basically targeting capital and making the rich pay their fair share, increasing wages for people, increasing the social safety net and the social services that people get so they're not worried about getting bankrupt when they break their leg and have to go to the hospital. They're not worried about being homeless. If that would be like a huge thing. If people had a universal basic income, that would cover kind of their rent and their food security. That would be a great help, and that would really diminish the number of just people being socially isolated, where they feel like they can't afford to have friends. They're working all the time. They simply can't afford to go out on dates, pay for dinner, go out, eat fancy food, have good time, like pay for entertainment, basically. That would solve a lot of loneliness issues. So, I mean, Jordan Peterson has identified an issue. His solutions for this issue are horrible. They're nonsensical. They're just straight up nonsensical. It's like, clean your room, have responsibility. Okay, that's simply not enough, because he's not actually addressing the underlying causes, which is people simply can't afford to be in the position that they want to be in.
Was that Germa? Believe it or not, this wasn't the worst of it.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, and I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
When I first saw this, I thought it was a parody created by Republicans to make fun of how hard the Democratic Party is trying to pander to men to get their vote. But alas.
I love women. I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
Everything from them directed towards men has to have like this tone of irony or self-deprecation. They can't even do it sincerely. But apparently white men aren't the only demographic Kamala is struggling with.
This is the Democratic margin.
I mean, I guess the irony is they had really masculine stereotypes, and then they're like subverting expectations by saying that these masculine guys are supporting women, where the expectation would be that they don't give a fuck about women. So that's slightly ironic, but it's not really self-deprecating in any way. It's not saying that these guys are any less of men by supporting women. If you interpret it that way, then that is kind of concerning. You're saying that it's self-deprecating for men to say, I support women. That's a weird thing to comment on. Let's run that back.
Women.
When I first saw this, I thought it was a parody created by Republicans to make fun of how hard the Democratic Party is trying to pander to men to get their vote. But alas.
I love women. I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
Everything from them directed towards men has to have like this tone of irony or self-deprecation. They can't even do it sincerely. But apparently white men aren't the only demographic Kamala is struggling with.
I mean, how's that not a sincere ad? I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe I'm misreading the situation. And then just one more thing about that ad. I don't know where it's playing. Maybe it's made for TikTok. Maybe it's on like YouTube. A lot of young people simply aren't receiving ads like that.
This is the Democratic margin among black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points.
Democrats deployed their ultimate weapon, Barack Obama. At a campaign stump for Harris on Thursday in Pittsburgh, Obama said that despite Harris raising upward of $1 billion, we have yet to see the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. That lag in energy, he added, appears, quote, to be more pronounced with the brothers. You're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that, he said, because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman for president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. Once again, their only tactic seems to be getting in a man's face and going, tisk tisk bad boy. Like a dog that just peed on the carpet. It's not 2014 anymore, Barack. Nobody cares about sexism, motherfucker. We can't afford groceries. What's crazy is, as far as I know, Kamala herself has never played the woman card. She has never played the sexism card. In fact, she actively pushes against it.
You've been reluctant to lean into, to talk about the historic nature of your candidacy on the campaign trail. Why is that?
Well, I'm clearly a woman. I don't need to point that out to anyone. The point that most people really care about is, can you do the job? And do you have a plan to actually focus on them?
I was proud. It's like they finally learned from Hillary Clinton's failure. But that didn't stop the media or Barack Obama from doing it for her. Thanks, Obama. For all the Zoomers, thanks, Obama was a meme. in like 2008. Yeah, it was funny back then. That would have slapped. While I was writing this video, Kamala and Gretchen Whitmer were getting ready to film a video at a bar together when Kamala was apparently caught on hot mic saying this.
Yeah.
What was it?
Saying this.
We want to improve the ground game among men.
Yeah. Oh, we have microphones and just listening to everything. I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
You'll
now you
bleep
tell
my
us.
F words.
We just told all the family secrets. Shit.
We need to move ground with men, so what we're gonna do is pretend to drink beer at a bar. Men like beer, right?
Cheers.
Just talk about policy. Just be yourself. Just.
Okay, I mean, again, talking about policy isn't going to get anyone to vote for you. So, and we can talk about like the Obama thing where he's just like chastising voters. It's just like classic liberal shit, right? Liberals saying, oh, well, it's Latino voters' fault. It's the idea that we talked about trans people too much. We need to blame the left because the left decided to stay home. Just classic liberal stuff. Yeah, and again, Obama's like, oh, I'm going to talk to the voters that voted for me and tell them to vote for Kamala Harris. But it is a different time period, so ShoeOnHead's right about that. But what she does, like, what I would like her to do is talk more about how the Republicans are appealing to men, because there is a bit of a double standard here, right? She's criticizing the Harris campaign for their attempts to reach men. Let's see if she can analyze how the Republicans are attempting to reach male voters.
Just listen to men and what they want. Kamala, all you gotta do is talk. Actually, no, now that I think about it, that might make it worse. Put Tim Walz out there, okay? Let Tim Walz do the talking. Don't dress him up as a man. You wanna know how to speak to men? Go to where they are. A good place to speak to young men is the Joe Rogan podcast, which Kamala hinted at going on, but then that never happened, and instead Trump went on, and that episode hit like 20 million views in a day. But like, can you...
45 million views by election day. So yeah, again, I agree with ShoeOnHead here. Not so much her point about listen to young men and feel what they're thinking, because again, young men's wants and their desires and their goals are no different than everyone else's desires and goals. Do young men want abortion to be legal? Of course they do. They do not want to be a fucking father at the age of 20. Everyone wants abortion to be legal. Everyone wants to be able to have a pathway to the middle class. And that's just not something that the Democrats were really messaging towards. And you could say that, of course, I think Democratic policies are better than Republican policies in order to get people to these goals. It's just that the messaging wasn't there and their policies didn't go far enough. When you are experiencing this type of income inequality, you need more than just, I'll give you a small loan, or I'll give you a loan to start your small business in majority neighborhoods. It's ridiculous.
You blame her? Joe Rogan is just one of the most popular podcasts in the world with a majority young male audience. I hate it here. Every time this topic comes up, so does the topic of like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, internet algorithms, Gamergate, whatever.
There is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces. Any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, everything that they see is right-wing sentiment being expressed by individuals that they find charismatic.
But you can only blame internet algorithms for so much for so long. This automatic assumption that any dissent from liberal mainstream thought could only be caused by manipulation or brainwashing from podcasters is honestly a cope, in my opinion, and just an easy excuse for failing to reach anyone beyond your own subreddit. As if this all wasn't the result of like a stagnant neoliberal corpo hell world that created a vacuum that was just waiting to be filled with any kind of populism. The crazy thing is, the Democratic Party did have a candidate who successfully spoke to the demographic that they are currently trying so hard to reach. His name was Bernie Sanders. And every time he did speak to that demographic or say he was concerned that the
Yeah, that's true. Let's just get into Son, since I do have a clip queued up for him here. I think this was the time that I wanted to talk about it.
Rights for trans rights, advocating to uplift people of color in this country, advocating to help the entirety of the American working class, the global working class, across the board, unconditionally, then I don't care if you fucking yell and get upset about what my perspective is. Okay? It would be hard for a black person to change a white racist mind, but he may listen to a white person on it. I mean, that's it. That is the method. Okay? The method is, I know that people who are transphobic are going to be infinitely more resistant to
and 10 million views a day. And so over the summer, I said, well, what if this election season, I do like 25 campus stops and we kind of create these open air discussions, and they might go viral, especially on TikTok, that could influence a lot of people to view the election the way, obviously, I want them.
That's literally just what Steven Crowder did. And yes, Philly D is a Hasanabi head. That is confirmed. He literally posts shirtless selfies of himself before going live on Twitch now. Okay. Bro, you are legit so hard to find on Twitch now. Yes, dude. God. Yes. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. This is the expected outcome. And everything I said, unfortunately, became true. It was funny when using your 300K live stream, I had to log in to find he was like stabbing themselves in the leg. Yeah, it didn't matter. Okay.
Not this part. Oh, I should have had it
never stop until every single fucking conservatives will never stop until every single person that is doing anything that's like even remotely political, remotely close to political commentary is at least center right. Okay. That's it.
That sounds like a number, but all of a sudden, here's what was amazing. It was the most effective way I ever reached the working class in my career. The muscular class, janitors, waiters, waitresses, Uber drivers, police officers, firefighters. Even more so than YouTube and Instagram, for whatever reason, something about TikTok really reaches people that Donald Trump was trying to win 10 or 15% more of. And final thought I'll make on this. It's the most diverse audience that I'm talking about black, Hispanic, Asian, young. And I'll just tell one story. I was in Vegas about to speak, and there were a bunch of, waiters and waitresses coming up asking for pictures, all Hispanic, all Asian American, Pacific Islander, that saw me on TikTok, and they're like, thank you, you connected dots, I think. And it is a form of entertainment what we do on TikTok because it's ideas that are kind of colliding. And so if you would have told me a year ago that we'd have like one of the largest TikToks out there in conservative media and all politics, I would have said no way. But and we can go whatever direction you want, Pat, but I believe without the horror and the tragedy on October 7th and the events that came subsequent.
Yeah, anyway, so what Charlie Kirk said there is pretty interesting. And this is insane. This part blew my mind. Like,
one of the
how bad are
rules in politics is do everything. Do everything. Be in yes mode. Go everywhere you can. Talk to anyone you can. That has become less.
To the Canadian broadcaster, literally.
And
I see. So you think when
into Canadian politics
as the stupid.
Intentional.
Yeah, I'm on fucking CBC, babe.
Blaming them, bro, is to me it's.
Oh, you think it's a pejorative?
Oh, like who is this? Chris Cuomo, and he's like, I think that saying the bro vote is insulting to men. Are you kidding me? That's the takeaway here. Charlie Kirk just laid out his whole strategy to reach an entire new audience, and specifically like young men, the most, right? Like that's a huge demographic that he was trying to get, and his takeaway is, oh well, I don't like the term the bro vote. Are you kidding me, dude?
Yeah, I think it's
okay.
And I'm okay with it. I don't see who's called bros. I get called that. I'm 54 years old. And
I see. So you think when people label that, they're trying to use it as a...
Oh, yeah. Because it's never one of them.
I got it. So when you're saying when they say these bro podcasts he's going on, almost like...
Who cares? It's so stupid. Anyway, Hassan's been pretty good about like messaging towards young men, setting himself up as a role model, and just talking about how voting for Trump is not really going to change your life. Almost done with this video. 5 minutes left. let's continue.
Democratic Party didn't do enough to speak to that demographic. He was called a sexist, a racist, he was backstabbed multiple times, and cheated out of winning the Democratic primaries. His fans were called Bernie bros, and constantly berated as sexists and misogynists. His campaign was too white and too male, and this apparently was a top priority to remedy in future campaigns.
Yeah, so with this headline, you can see like the liberal desire to appear progressive. We need to have a colorful campaign. We need to have a diverse campaign in appearance. But when you actually get down to the policy, whose policy is more progressive? Is it Bernie Sanders, who's like, we need to make the rich pay their fair share? Or Kamala Harris, where she's like, we need to have $25,000 loans for first-time home buyers. Bernie Sanders' campaign was way more progressive, and it was more diverse. It wasn't just that they had a specific like number of people in Bernie's campaign that was like men, women. It wasn't like the DEI thing, but you can take a look at the number of donations that he got from all different types of people, from working class, and then all different like ethnicities supporting Bernie Sanders, and he did have a very broad coalition of support.
And this apparently was a top priority to remedy in future campaigns. We were told he was just like Trump and, quote, appealed to angry white men. Well, who's trying to appeal to angry white men now, bitch? It's almost like Bernie's hyper-focus on working class issues, bread and butter issues, and populism was naturally attractive to men. No football or beer required. I miss him. And you know what? Maybe this shift with young men has less to do with who's holding the football and more of what happens when the DNC spends all their time and energy trashing the little bit of populism in their movement. And if you ask me, handing conservatives a monopoly on anti-establishment rhetoric on a silver platter was probably their first mistake. They kind of gave up on that bread and butter New Deal stuff for identity politics, and if you deny this, you are either lying or coping.
Okay, well, they didn't give it up for identity politics. They've always had identity politics. That hasn't really gone anywhere. They gave up that populism to shift more right. Trump doesn't have real populist in terms of his economic policies. He's not populist. He's populist in terms of his rhetoric. And the Democrats, they've never really been populist in terms of their policies. And they're just not populist in terms of the rhetoric. And it turns out that Donald Trump won both of the elections where he was not the incumbent. I think that's like pretty simple there. The Democrats have never been populist in policy. Bernie Sanders was rhetorically populist, and he was popular as a result of that in the primaries. Donald Trump, rhetorically populist. But again, I think ShoeOnHead is kind of ignoring the fact that the DNC never really had populist policies, and the Republicans never had populist policies either.
Physical manifestation of the left has gone from the vision of the blue-collar union worker to a nagging, scolding fat woman with blue hair, barging into everyone's spaces and culturally...
I mean, I disagree with this characterization. Donald Trump did make inroads with union members. He made inroads with working class people, but again, Biden was extremely pro-union in his policies. He got union endorsements. He had the strongest NLRB, the labor board, out of any president. Biden was very good on unions, and that was an image that the Biden administration was trying to cultivate among its voters. There is really no evidence of this blue-haired, woke, feminist, cancel culture type person pretty much in any of the last 4 years. And even before that, even when Donald Trump was president, that's not the type of person that was really representative of the Democratic Party. Once again, it's not that their policies is bad, it's that their messaging was atrocious on this. And Donald Trump was able to outflank them in terms of his populist rhetoric, even though Biden was pretty pro-union and pro-working class in his policies, in his actions. And in the way he self-identified, he was down at the picket line wearing the fucking hard hat. He liked the idea of him being a pro-union president that would get down with the working man. But he still had kind of the same neoliberal policies that we've been trucking along with for decades now, and that just wasn't going to cut it in this huge surge of anti-incumbent energy that the entire world has been experiencing. Pretty much every incumbent party lost in this election cycle.
Colonizing them. Change this, change that. I don't like this, I don't like that. It's just incredible for me to witness years of anti-male rhetoric finally come back to bite the left and Democrats in the ass. Watching these chickens come home to roost has just been both incredibly depressing and deliciously vindicating to me in a sick way, and I'm not sure if I should lend out a helping.
So I just want to make the comment that even though the Democratic Party was extremely critical of Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016, they were saying that his supporters were misogynistic, they were saying that his supporters were too white. ShoeOnHead is trying to make the case that those criticisms, 8 years later, had a chilling effect on men voting for Kamala Harris, and I just don't think that's the case. I think that, again, there really was not a narrative from the Harris campaign, from the Democrats in these past 8 years, specifically these past 4 years, that men are bad. That's not a narrative that was ever given by mainstream Democrats, like Democratic Party leaders. We never really heard about that. We didn't hear messaging towards men, period. And because of that, the right was able to fill that void that was left. So the right was able to effectively message to men because the Democrats weren't giving any message towards men at all. It wasn't that men are bad, you need to fit into these pre-designed boxes we have for you so that you can be the good kind of man. Sure, you found some fucking people on Twitter arguing about it back and forth. Who gives a fuck? That's not relevant at all. Even the ads that she played, like that one ad of the guy's like, I'm a manly man, but I also support women. That's not putting men into boxes. That's like embracing the diversity of masculinity and saying that it's also masculine to support women. They're not criticizing masculinity there at all. They're not saying it's toxic masculinity. It's not like that fucking Gillette ad where it's like the boys will be boys type thing and talking about how toxic masculinity is. So I think this whole video was built up off of just the general vibes that ShoeOnHead gets, and it's kind of the heart and soul of her channel where she finds criticisms of men and then she calls it out and she's like, oh look, isn't this so stupid, guys? These people are criticizing men and now they lost the election, LOL. And I just think there's no relevance. She's not doing an effective job of tying the criticisms of men to the loss of Kamala Harris, and I feel like I've made my case pretty clear.
Hand or Mufasa them off this fucking cliff. Some Democrats are nervous the party was too late to realize the problem. These Democrats worry that the party has focused too much on courting women voters, LGBTQ voters, and culturally progressive voters, alienating too many men in the process. There's a recognition that we're losing men, and the things we're doing around men haven't been working. I think a lot of it is a reaction to social progressivism done the wrong way, says David Hogg. Young men, he says, feel like progressives look down on them for saying the
ShoeOnHead can bring up all of these fucking Democrats that are like, oh, we are too pro-trans people and that's why we lost the election. We're turning men off by being too pro-trans. We're being too pro-gay. Why are we fighting for gay rights? Why are we pushing for abortion? Men don't like abortion. We're pushing men away. I'm gonna argue fucking tooth and nail. I'll argue all day, all night against these fucking stupid ass takes that Democrats have. You can bring up dumb takes all you want, ShoeOnHead. Give me actual evidence that they were. I mean, again, being pro-LGBTQ is not being anti-men. And the fact that she brings up these fucking homophobic Democratic senators and congressmen talking about how the Democratic Party was too pro-trans and that's why they lost. as an example of criticizing men says a lot. Like, I assumed ShoeOnHead was pro LGBTQ, but if she thinks that being pro LGBTQ is a criticism of men, then I don't know. I don't really have anything else to talk about in this video, because that seems pretty self-evidently fucking stupid.
Wrong thing, even when it's a mistake. That discomfort is enough to drive them away from the Democratic Party, even if they don't necessarily agree with Republicans. They would rather be around someone they don't agree with who doesn't judge them, than somebody they do agree with who judges them constantly. Men aren't moving right because they are choosing fascism. They are moving right because the left made them the villains in their anime fan fiction.
Also, I love how to combat the idea of identity politics, she brings on people that are exclusively talking about identity politics. Oh, men are going more Republican because Democrats are going too woke on LGBTQ stuff. And I'm sorry, men are choosing fascism. Women are choosing fascism. People are choosing fascism. Donald Trump supporters are choosing fascism. Men want to feel powerful again. And men, like people in general, don't like the idea that they're going to be like a toxic leader that's ruling through force. Of course, when people look at like the I Love Lucy thing, they're like, oh, well, I want to be loved. I don't want to force people to be subservient to me, force my wife to be subservient to me. But they'll take that over the position they're in right now. So of course it's a choice towards fascism. They see the rhetoric that Donald Trump has on women. Why do you think immediately after the election the whole your body my choice thing took off like wildfire? Men are fucking, I mean, look, men are feeling bad. They do not have a great position in life right now, especially young men. They want a better position. Democrats aren't really offering them that better position. So they'll take the fucking fascist position that Trump's offering them rather than continue in this shitty position they're in right now.
Not that they all like Trump, it's that they all hate you. And no amount of camo hats is going to fix that. But do not get it twisted. I do not in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we not going to talk about all of the stupid shit that Trump does to try to get men to vote for him, to try to get Jews to vote for him, to try to get Muslims to vote for him? I mean, this is so fucking stupid. Why are you criticizing the fucking camo hat merch that the Walz Harris campaign did, or the Harris Walz campaign did? Like, you're not gonna criticize the fucking sneakers that Trump did to try to get black people, the gold watches to, I mean, that's a scam, I guess. The trading cards to get the crypto people and the NFT people. I mean, this criticism is so vacuous. It's so dumb.
Believe the GOP is going to help men. I don't think they're going to help anyone. Except maybe Israel. Do I think all of the left is some hyper woke fat lady wagging her finger in men's faces like no fun allowed? No. If I did, I wouldn't call myself left-wing. I'm not a Democrat, I'm a registered independent. But the Democratic Party is historically better on policy, and despite their messaging, even when it comes to helping men. Healthcare, higher wages, paid family leave, labor protection, Social Security, things Republicans have always fought against. And I think that's why...
Yeah, guess what? All of those things are also helping women, so... Like, is ShoeOnHead gonna bring that up? All of, like, that whole list of policies that she just listed off is going to help women as much as it helps men.
This is extra frustrating to me. I don't say this with any love for the Republican Party. In fact, if anything, I say it with love for the Democratic Party. I fucking hate them, but deep down, I wish they could be better. I'm doing this for your own good. Shh. Go sleep, shh. Go to sleep, I love you, go to sleep, shh. I just hope that whether Kamala wins or loses, the party can take a step back and evaluate what they're doing wrong. Because I don't think the Democratic Party should be the party for the gays and women. I think the Democratic Party should be the party for everyone, including angry white men. So in your opinion, what could the...
This is such stupid criticism. I mean, they literally tried to get white men to vote for them with Walz. I mean, you said yourself, they're trying to reach out to men. Walz and Harris didn't criticize men. They embraced masculine stereotypes. Like, the ads you played were an embracement of masculine stereotypes. The some white dudes, that was a space for men to like give their support to Kamala Harris, voice their support. They didn't pander to the gay community. They didn't pander to women specifically. And if anything, they mostly talked about men this campaign. Did you hear Kamala Harris talk about any gay issues, any LGBTQ issues? That she did talk about abortion. But other than that, what issues did she talk about for women? And it is a little bit misogynistic to assume that abortion is just a woman's issue. Obviously, whenever you have an abortion, there's a man involved. Like, fucking obviously. This is really, I mean, this is pretty bad faith criticism, I think. She didn't talk really about anything that the Republicans are doing. Kind of a little bit. Not like a very informed take on what the Republicans are doing.
Democratic Party do to win back young men? Can they do anything? Are they fucked? To me, it might take decades of work to fix the culture, the rot that infests the progressive ideology. It is going to take a lot of work to fix, but I think it's worth it, not just...
Okay, so she's saying that not everyone on the left is that overweight, finger-wagging, leftist cancel culture warrior. But it's the ideology, it's a progressive ideology that is rotten, not the campaign strategy. When this entire thing has been her criticizing campaign strategy. She even said herself, Bernie Sanders' campaign and his ideology got young men involved in the progressive movement. So what the fuck are we doing here? Like, his ideology literally got people to vote for him. Literally got the demographic this entire fucking video is about to vote for Bernie Sanders. Why are you criticizing the ideology? I thought this whole video was about the campaigning. Man, I mean, it's not a very concise video. It's not very well put together in terms of the message that she wants to get across. It's extremely muddled, going back and forth between, oh, well, this is their campaigning. It's not that they're too LGBTQ. It's that they're not talking about men. And then, oh, it is that they're too LGBTQ. And it's this ideology. It's this progressive ideology which is turning away men. Even though you say that like the policies that this ideology brings is supportive of men and they should vote for it.
For the Democratic Party's sake, but just for society's sake. If you like this video, please consider donating to my Patreon, link down below.
I didn't like it. Is there anything left?
Below. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate it so much. Also, thank you for 2 million subscribers. That's insane. And I will see you guys with a new video soon. Bye!
Yeah, that is insane. That was a dumb video. I mean, it brought up some interesting ideas. So Charlie Kirk's getting a lot of shit. He's, man. Okay, we're just gonna end off on this short little analysis of what Charlie Kirk's doing, and I do think that it relates to men. So let's check it out.
Are you voting for Kamala?
I am.
Okay. What is her greatest?
Hey, free speech. Free speech.
Yeah, David.
So right off the bat, obviously we have a very hostile environment for a very uninformed person and extremely nervous person to confront Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk has his back to the wall. He's comfortable. He's surrounded by security, friends. He's bringing on progressive people in a sea of Charlie Kirk fans to challenge him. So this guy is literally in the midst of people that would probably be fine beating him up. So again, extremely unequal environment to do this with, and you have a guy who is a paid political propagandist versus a college kid who I don't know, he's taking a class on something.
Say they have the freedom of speech to boo you. That's right.
Do I have the freedom of speech? Okay, so if I boo them, then it's an impediment of freedom of...
No, but I just gave you an open mic for 15 minutes. Let's just tell me, what is Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment?
So I love this line of questioning, like, what is Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment? Shouldn't you be focused on the policy that the two candidates are bringing to the presidency rather than focusing on like their past accomplishments? You can look at the record, their previous record, to have a better informed opinion of what you think will happen when they're in the presidency. But saying you're voting for someone based off of their past accomplishments is an insane way to decide who you're voting for.
See, that's that question. You can't. Okay. The greatest accomplishment. That goes back to sort of establishing an extreme. I can't definitively say, oh, this is the greatest, though. Absolute.
Name an
greatest.
accomplishment of hers.
An accomplishment of her. She got in. She in when she
So
was.
anyway, we don't need to get any further into this video, but I mean, just let's take a look at the comments. So they're all voting with emotions. Bro was sweating. Me and Math, when they tell me to explain my answer, he wanted to cry. You almost made him cry. So again, they're not actually doing any policy type stuff. It's not policy content. It's literally just, let's get a leftist or a progressive guy that looks nerdy. He looks extremely unconfident. He looks uncomfortable. And let's make fun of him. So they're all of the comments are talking about like just superficial aspects to this kid. They're not even really talking about his answer, because he doesn't really give an answer, to be fair. But anyway, so that was interesting. Let's also talk about this one.
What's your name?
None of your business, unfortunately, but...
Okay, hello, nice to meet you, none of your business.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So, do you love America?
Yes, I do.
I hate America.
So, like, starts hyperventilating as soon as the crowd starts jeering at him.
Every state in the USA should be an independent country. What do you think of this?
Well, I just first have to ask, since you hate the country, do you plan to leave?
What do you mean by that?
Do you plan to go live in another country?
I mean, bro, he can't even answer the kid's fucking question. He's like, does this stupid attack. Oh, you hate the country, so are you gonna leave then? Anyway, so again, all of these people criticizing this person rather than criticizing what they're saying. And you have like skinny, gawky, awkward on the mic, skinny, long hair, mask, glasses wearing. These are targets for bullying. Let's take a look at how Charlie Kirk responds to a buff dude, where the guy's like, I want to lean liberal. I tend to lean liberal.
On a lot of issues,
and just, I mean, we'll get into this, but look at the comments. He's so respectful. What a respectful young man. Can I get a hat? I know Charlie was giggling and kicking his feet at that. Mad respect for this kid.
Kind of torn on the election.
I want to try to win you over as a liberal for Donald Trump. So you're going to give me a chance, okay?
So what does he say? The kid says, I'm a liberal. Can you talk to me about this election? And Charlie says, I want to win you over to vote for Donald Trump.
So I tend to lean liberal on a lot of issues, and I'm kind of torn on the election.
I want to try to win you over as a liberal for Donald Trump. So you're going to give me a chance, okay?
I will, sir.
All right, okay. There are 3 things I want you to think about when voting for Trump. Number one.
Honestly, I couldn't care less about what happens in the rest of this video, but you can see where when Charlie's like talking to quote unquote liberals who are geeky and, let's just be honest, kind of like targets for bullying, and they were bullied by the people in Charlie Kirk's crowd. The comments are all trashing the people. But when Charlie Kirk talks to this buff guy who obviously works out, he's like, I want to win you over. So you can see how Charlie Kirk is almost curating this, and the way that he is treating kind of people that would be considered like undesirable in terms of the forms of masculinity. He is shitting on them, making them extremely uncomfortable, making them look really bad. And then when he's talking to this guy who he thinks he could hold up as like a symbol of masculinity, then the way he treats them is completely different. So not only is Charlie Kirk really reaching young people with TikTok, with these platforms, as embarrassing as it is for Charlie Kirk, who's like 35 or something, talking to college kids on college campuses, the fact that he's talking to college kids does let him reach college age kids. They can identify in the people that are talking to him. Maybe they see this guy and they're like, oh, wow, I'd like to be him. He looks buff. He's treated respectfully by Charlie Kirk. Maybe they see these like archetypical bullied kids on Charlie Kirk's content and they're like, oh, yeah, I know a guy like that in my class. He's so annoying. I'm with Charlie Kirk. So again, it's the messaging, and it's the form of messaging, and it's also the message. And Charlie Kirk he was talking about it, but he did a great job reaching people, defining masculinity, defining the people that he wants in his movement, and defining the people that he doesn't want in his movement, and just having very simple, clear lines that he can get his audience that he's trying to cultivate to identify with and relate to it. And then once you have people relating to your message, you can get them to vote pretty much how you want to. Jordan Peterson's insane. Covered the intro of this. We covered ShoeOnHead. I think we covered everything, guys. This was a long one. Again, taking a break from the H3 Hassan drama that I have been covering. Let me know if there's any other issues that you really want to see me cover. I wanted to cover this video because I think it's interesting, the whole question of men. And I know ShoeOnHead has had some weird opinions in the past, like a kind of a fraught relationship with the progressive side. And honestly, kind of a disappointing video from her end. But I want to thank everyone for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let's get these subscriber counts up. Got monetized, so I'm actually making some money off of this channel now. And just I appreciate everyone's views. I appreciate everyone's engagement. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.